All right, welcome back to the Spinnin Backfist MMA show. It is Robbie Fox, it is Big F, and we are here with Garry Tonon. He is fighting Martin Nguyen at 165 on January 28th. You could watch that on watch.onefc.com. It's a former two-time champ. It's a great opponent, obviously. It's going to be a great fight. How are you, Garry?
I'm doing great, man.
Yep. How do you feel about this opponent, Martin Nguyen?
I feel like it's a long time coming. This is somebody that I watched, when he was the former two-division champion. It was roughly around the same time as when I entered into my journey in mixed martial arts and, my foray into one championship. So I've been, studying him. In my eyes, it's like always makes sense. You know what I mean? Like if he's the guy on top, like probably makes sense to pay attention to him. It's not like it looked like he was going to be retiring anytime soon when I started fighting. So I figured this was going to be somebody I was going to have to fight at some point in the future. So definitely somebody I paid a ton of attention to in the past and somebody that I've been really impressed with. He's dealt with so many different styles of opponents really, really well and was able to deal with a lot of different challenges. And he's got a lot of experience. And I think it's a great test just in terms of like deciding whether or not I deserve to be mentioned in a list of like elite mixed martial artists. I mean, I think, beating a former two-division champ pretty well solidifies my position just about as well as winning a title would, if you ask me.
Do you think a win here would give you a title match next?
I think it's really likely. It's hard for me to imagine what else would take place, right? So, okay. That would be, first of all, that'd be 3 in a row for me. Okay. That would be pretty big. Second of all, if I'm rotating through the top 5 and thinking to myself, like who fights who? Okay. So Ilya just lost to Thon. Thon's about to fight Tankai. So I win this one. An Ilya fight doesn't really make sense, because he just lost to Thon. So really the only other thing that I could possibly see happening aside from giving me a title shot is if Thon lost this upcoming title fight, and then they said, "Oh, well, we want you to fight Thon first." I guess they could do that. I guess it'd be a little weird, me being on a 3-fight win streak and then him just losing a fight. But that's the only really other step that I could possibly see than them giving me a title shot. And at the end of the day, it doesn't make too much of a difference. Like the way I see it, aside from anybody getting hit by a bus in this top 5, I'm pretty sure we're going to all be fighting each other. So I don't see anybody retiring anytime soon or anything like that. So, I anticipate fighting Tankai. I anticipate fighting Thon Lei. It's just a matter of when it happens. Will the belt be around my waist when I'm doing it? Will it be before the belt? Will it be after? Who knows? I don't know.
Do you try to map out a year in advance like that? Like, do you kind of know in your head how many times you want to fight this year and when you want to fight this year? Or are you taking everything one fight at a time?
Man, I really probably would have liked to have more fights, under my belt at this point. COVID was a really big detractor from that. It was really difficult to make that happen, especially in Asia. They particularly Singapore. Was pretty hard on, COVID restrictions and stuff. It made it pretty difficult for us to continue fighting at with the frequency that we really wanted to. That was tough. I was able to get a couple in, but in an ideal world, I'd like to fight at least 3 times a year. That was the general idea when I first got started. And I got off to a pretty good start with that. I had like 4 or 5 fights pretty quickly. But then things kind of started to slow down, with COVID and everything like that. So, that's typically what I would push for, in my MMA career, especially, being a little bit greener than, maybe some other athletes. So I'd rather have more fights than less, but, it just hasn't worked out that way. It's not so much, it wasn't so much my choosing. It was just kind of the way things worked out.
Is the Thon Lee fight one you really want back, or are you more focused on the belt, or what more is like the revenge factor something that matters to you, or are you more just focused on just getting the belt?
It is, from a drama point of view, like, would it be cool to like fight for the belt against Thon, like, because that's the guy that beat me, right? Like, yeah, that'd be cool. But like, so would fighting him, at any point and being able to get that back. And like I said, whether he loses, and then I fought Tankai for the title. Like, it's like the Family fight's gonna happen. I don't see how either of us avoids it. You know, it's like, it's number one, it's good drama. Number two, we're all in the top 5. Again, like, I don't think anybody that's in this top 5 right now is suddenly gonna suck or suddenly die. So to me, we're fighting each other. You know, I just don't see how anybody gets away from it. So I think it's just a matter of time. What context? You know, will it be a 5-round fight? Will it be a 3-round fight? I think a 5-round fight is always good for me, but, like, you know, I'd like to believe I don't need it. I'd like to.
Yeah.
There was, you know, one of my fights where I wasn't able to submit the guy in 3 rounds. So, you know, maybe I do, you know, here and there. It might be tougher. So we'll see.
I know you're a Jersey guy. Where in Jersey did you actually grow up?
So I bounced around Jersey, but most of my life was in, like, South Jersey. I lived, like, in a town called Forked River, somewhere 20 minutes south of, like, where the Jersey Shore was filmed, if that helps people.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, roughly around that area. Lacey Township is where I spent most of my life, like high school and stuff like that. And I moved to Rutgers later on, so that's more Central Jersey. Some people don't believe Central Jersey exists, but in my eyes, that's where that is. And then my last year in Jersey, I spent in Secaucus. So
okay, right by the train station.
Around. Yeah. That's like North Jersey, like right across from New York City.
Yeah. I read that you first got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when one of your friends brought you to a tournament at 14. Are you still friends with that guy?
Oh yeah. We're still friends. You know, we don't talk as often because he still lives in Jersey and all that. But you know, Chris Trout, he's a good friend of mine. I saw him, you know, not too long ago. You know.
That must be a hell of a feeling for him to introduce you to something and then you become elite at it, like, before his eyes. That's crazy.
Yeah, man. He was a super interesting kid, and it was interesting. It was really great for me to link up with him because he as well as his father became, like, big, you know, kind of moving forces in my life at the time. I lacked a bit of male role models. You know, my parents had gotten divorced. I didn't see my dad that often. And so when I started hanging out with Chris, his dad was a very big, you know, presence in his life. They were always kind of doing stuff together, lifting at the gym and everything. So it was kind of it was a point where, you know, hey, I'm living with my mom and my sister. That's where I get the majority of my, you know, interaction outside of just, like, my friends. And now all of a sudden I'm spending a ton of time with this kid, Chris, and his dad kind of helped lead me, you know, kind of in the direction of becoming a man at an early stage in my life. And yeah, it was cool, a cool experience. And I'm lucky to have had their influence, you know, Chris and Scott Trout. Shout out to those guys. Thank you so much for everything you did for me and treating me, you know, like one of your sons.
That's awesome.
Obviously, we saw you've had this illustrious jiu-jitsu career, competing against some great guys. But one guy I want to ask you about, that we're doing some research. You had a big grudge match, as they described it, with Dillon Danis. And obviously, another Jersey guys. Well, what was competing against him like? Obviously, he's this big name now for a lot of other reasons. But what was that like back in the day?
Or for not a lot of other reasons, depending on the way that you look at it. But yeah, man. I mean, it was something that made sense back in the day because it was relevant and because it's something that I thought made sense for my career, and I thought was a, what would I put this, a meaningful challenge at the time. You know, nowadays it's like he's not really, you know, fighting or competing anymore. So it's like, it seems more like he's more concerned with chasing, like, whatever's going to make him some money and popularity online and all these sorts of things. So I kind of got off that. To me, the only thing that makes that name grow now is people, like, talking shit back to him whenever he talks shit, or, like, whatever the case may be. It's not like actual, there's no weight attached to it anymore because the person's not, like, actively really competing at a high level. So it's like, when it makes sense, it makes sense, you know, to like talk shit to somebody and pick fights with people, you know. At the time it made sense because back then we were both very competitive grapplers, you know, trying to, you know, compete in professional shows and all these sorts of things. So it's like, yeah, we're going to have some back and forth. We're going to try to set up matches and that makes sense. It's kind of like, you know, you don't see me too often picking fights with like somebody from a different organization and talking too much shit because it's like, why, you know, what's the payoff? What are the chances that I end up fighting this person in any time in the near future? So it's like, why am I going to do that? And I've never been big on that. I'm not trying to, you know, pick on random celebrity boxers or whatever the case may be to try to, you know, elevate myself or whatever, or just get a social media stir. It's like, man, I sometimes think to myself when I look at social media today, like whatever happened to good old fashioned, like just fucking doing something to like elevate your name and like who, like what you are and who you are. And it's like, how about we just accomplish something, you know, like instead of just calling people out online. It's like, I don't know, man. That's the way that I look at it. It's like, I'm just going to let my accomplishments speak for themselves for the most part. I mean, I like a little bit of shit talk, but like I said, you know, when it makes sense, when I think it's going to be actually promoting something. Sorry, I'm just going to like plug my computer in while I'm chatting to you here because I think I'm running out of batteries. But
good.
It's helpful, you know, for your career and to sellify. I lost you guys for a second there. Sorry.
All good. We got you
Can
back.
you hear me now? Test
yep.
1, 2. All right. Awesome. Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. I was probably just repeating myself anyway. So no big deal. But you get the idea. I'm trying to pick fights with people who I think are a challenge and like it's exciting for the fans, but it also means something. Like that, those who I'm trying to pick fights with.
What was it like grappling against Gilbert Burns at Polaris? I know a lot of people really love that match.
Yeah. And that's a cool one to talk about too, because it's always great that like you compete against somebody and then they also have risen to like, you know, a pretty high level in their organization. Cause it's, you know, it's more something to be able to comment on. It's like, oh man, you know, like I contended with this guy who also, you know, became great one day. You know, you could even say the same thing, like, you know, people will say that, you know, when they are talking about like maybe competing against me, you know, when we were purple belts or something like that. It's like, oh man, yeah, I lost that guy in the finals, but also he became like one of the best grapplers ever. So yeah. So in the Gilbert Burns match, it's like great to be able to have submitted somebody who rose to such a, you know, a high level in the UFC. And not only that, keep in mind, like, he's in a different weight category for sure. Even though technically I fight 155 for, you know, one championship. Keep in mind that's the featherweight division in one championship. The guys that fight 155 for one champion, the only reason we do weigh 155, but actually, the funny thing is I'm putting 55 in air quotes, but we're actually like much more. Yeah, a true 55 than like, you know, somebody fighting in the UFC. A lot of people don't realize this. I mean, you see these guys fighting in a ring and in a camera and like the perspective, it's like hard to tell how big these people really are. But man, the 155 division in UFC now, we're talking like basically 200 plus. Like if you don't weigh 200 plus just walking around on an everyday basis, you're probably not fighting 155. You know what I'm saying? Like it's pretty rare. I think I just saw somebody the other day sparring. I forget his name, but he's sparring Sean Strickland, and he looked like bigger than Sean Strickland. And the guy fought 155, and I'm just like, what is going on? This is mad.
There's some videos of Aljamain Sterling, fights at 135, and he looks like he's getting up to 200. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's big. He's big, but it's not as pronounced the lighter people get, I guess. It doesn't seem, but he does seem very big for somebody who would fight 35. Like he feels like he's my size for certain. I mean, when he's certainly as strong as me, I'll tell you that. Much stronger, I would argue. Bitch, dude. He's a tough guy. But yeah, man, it's super cool. I'd love to see Gilbert Burns doing really well. And you know, maybe one day we'll see each other again. We'll see.
And you're a 5-time EBI champ just want to know, does one of those mean the most to you? One of those championship wins?
Man, so they mean things for different reasons. Like winning a 205 EBI is really cool because it's like, hell, man, you know, I'm not, like I said, I'm like a pretty true, I probably walk around like 170 on a regular day when I'm not like eating healthy and all these sorts of things, getting ready for a fight. And man, to be able to beat elite level grapplers at that weight class, it's like, wow, I feel like that's a pretty big statement, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I think during that card, I probably wasn't able to submit everyone. I probably like submitted like 2 of the guys, and maybe I won in overtime on some of the other ones. So one of the EBIs where I was more my weight class, but just blew through and submitted everybody. I think in some ways that's also an exciting thing for me because it's just like able to show how dominant I was at my actual weight class. You know, so they mean different things for different reasons, man. I was really excited to be a part of that era of grappling. It's a shame that it's not happening the way that it was happening. Like during my career, I'm not really sure why they're not doing that. I don't know why they emphasized the slap fighting thing over the EBIs. The EBIs were becoming really successful and super awesome, and everybody wanted to see them. And all of a sudden they decided that they were going to do some demented version of that. And I think they occasionally put on a regular EBI now. And now the other problem is people have taken EBI rules and they're like, oh, well, we could just take EBI rules and do them out of the context of EBI and it's going to be fine. It's like, no, the rules only worked because you had to submit somebody to make money. Once you take those rules and use them in a context where people make money no matter what, you've taken the reason that somebody is going to be trying to submit somebody out of it. That was, a lot of people misunderstand that about the rules. It's like those rules, while there's still problems with them, even in that context, only work with the submission incentive. Like you only made money if you submitted people. If you didn't submit any people in EBI, you made no money. That was the only way. That was the only way to make money. And now that they've tried to take those rules out of that context, people are like, oh, EBI rules suck. It's like, well, yeah, but you're also applying them in a completely incorrect context. And that's part of the reason that it doesn't work as well today as it used to when other people have tried to take that, you know, strategy.
No,
is there like a big strategic difference fighting guys so much bigger than you, or excuse me, grappling guys so much bigger than you?
I always tell people that the idea is move you as opposed to moving the opponent when you're dealing with somebody significantly bigger than you, right? It's going to be hard if I take, you know, for a guy like Mikey Musumeci, who's competing really successfully in one right now, it's going to be really difficult for when he competes against a guy like Buchecha for him to be pinned in side control and throw Buchecha off of. It's like, this is absurd. It would also be absurd for even if I started those two, if I started Mikey in side control on Buchecha, I don't think he could hold Buchecha in side control. There's no fucking way. Like he's so tiny compared. Buchecha could literally yawn asleep, okay, when he's on his bed, all right, without even active resistance, and just turn to move himself in a different position. And with all Mikey's strength, I don't think he could hold him, all right, in side control. Now, that doesn't mean he couldn't beat him in a grappling match. It's possible, but he's got to move around the guy. It's about Mikey moving relative to his opponent as opposed to him trying to move his opponent. And those are two different types of control. It's one thing to control somebody by holding somebody and not allowing them to move. It's another thing to control somebody by moving around them in a way where you're always safe and you're always threatening them, where you don't necessarily have to completely prevent them from moving, but you're always in a better place than they are. And that's the difference, I would say, overall, as far as competing successfully against somebody much bigger than you. You have to learn how to move around them as opposed to try to move them.
That's really fascinating. I need a Garry like self-defense class. You know, I tried jujitsu for a little bit. The blisters on my fingers, on my toes, I was like, I'm out of it. This isn't for me. We really appreciate you joining, though. Of course, you could watch 165 on January 28th. Watch.onefc.com. We'll be rooting for you. It's going to be a great fight.